إن الحمد إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. وقال تعالى يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. وقال تعالى يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. يا أيها الذين آمنوا ادخلوا في السلم كافة ولا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين. أما بعد, dear brothers and sisters, we're coming to an end to a very terrible year in many ways. This is the last Khutbah of 2016, and there have been lots of requests to be gentle and to be nice in assessing what happened in this year. It is like a Jumatul Wida for 2016. But there are some critical things that have happened in this year. It's very important for us to remember. So I was looking at what were the important events, and of course there is no list on what are the key events that affect the Muslim world or affect Muslims. There are many lists about key global events, key sporting events. We had Olympics this year and so on and so forth. Even there are lists about key cricketing events, but there is no list produced on what are the key events that affected the Muslim world and Muslim Ummah. But the first major event that kicked off in 2016 is sectarianism. On January 3rd, Iran broke off diplomatic relationship with Saudi Arabia because of the execution of 47 Shia people of Saudi Arabia, including one of the most prominent Shia scholars of Saudi Arabia, Sheikh al-Nimr. He was also executed, and therefore Iran broke. And that is the beginning of sectarianism. So we started the year with sectarianism, and we ended the year with Berlin. So if you look at 2016, it is a year of bloodshed. We had the shooting in Orlando happen in June of this year. 49 people were killed in a nightclub by a Muslim. We had the Brussels shooting, we had the Paris shooting. The number of terrorist attacks in Istanbul were so many that I can't even count. And then you had the coup in Turkey. This happened in July. And as a result of that, and so on and so forth. The last whole month, if you were part of the social media, you could experience how the Muslim Ummah was agonizing about what was happening in Aleppo. So this year ends with devastation. Aleppo is one of the most historical, the second most important city of Syria. If you look at the pictures of Aleppo in 2005 and look at the pictures now, you will be shocked. It is a very good, it's like, I look at the pictures of Aleppo and think of them as, the images that you get from a radiology doctor about the state of your health. So it's like the MRI of the Ummah, the photographs of Aleppo, how we have been totally devastated. It's not just that people are being killed, we are also erasing our culture, and we are also erasing our past. There is a joke about buying weapons. If you want to buy used weapons, then always buy them from France, because they have never been used and they have been dropped only once. And this is a joke about French surrender to the Germans in World War II. But one reason why the French surrendered to Germany was because they didn't want Paris destroyed as London was destroyed in the Second World War. If you look at the pictures of London, 1944, 1945, it looks like a dump. Paris survived because there was no bombing of Paris. So if you go to Paris today, you see history of Paris and culture of the French civilization all intact. But if you go to Aleppo today, not just Aleppo, one of the things that Muslims, especially in the West, are so proud of, this golden age of Islam. It was all anchored in Baghdad. And look what happened to Baghdad. Look what happened to Mosul. Mosul is the city of Salahuddin Ayyubi. All devastated. We are destroying our culture and our history and civilization. And not only that, the kind of responses that we are coming up with, driving trucks through population. There's so much conversation about the rise of hate after the current election. Donald Trump's election has resulted in a lot of hate and Islamophobia. Go back and look at all the incidences that have happened against Muslims since the election of Donald Trump. They are horrible, they should not happen. But a Muslim also went in Ohio State University and tried to kill so many people. He knifed 11 people. We are living in a culture of conflict, culture of war, and culture of intolerance, which is unbelievable. To me, it is, as I reflect on these issues, as I write about these things, as I think about these things, it's like a pressure cooker that is building. So you are all in the kitchen with me, but you're not paying attention to the pressure cooker. And I'm looking at the pressure cooker and I'm horrified that it's going to explode soon. Is it going to explode this kitchen, this house, this neighborhood, this city? I don't know. How long can we continue to live in this atmosphere of intolerance, hate? Violence seems to have become the first option. Sometimes the media invites me to comment on this. And this morning I was talking about the new ceasefire in Syria. And there are so many militias, it was unbelievable just going down the list of who is participating in the ceasefire and who is not. And while we were doing this, the commentator casually threw a question about Yemen. This was early morning, I just got up. And I said, you know what, I'm sorry to say, but I've even forgotten what the war in Yemen is all about. It started this year. That country is completely different. It was one of the poorest countries in the world. One of the provinces of Yemen is called death from starvation, and the country has become like that. This is 2006. Sectarianism is on its peak, terrorism is on its peak, it is global, and hatred against everybody, and now racism. If you're following the conference that took place in Toronto last week and the explosion of conversation about Muslim racism is unbelievable. The last 10 days has been about this. One of the most important and prominent scholars of Muslims in North America is being accused of racism. It is in this atmosphere that we are ending this year. So as you make your New Year resolutions, I'm sure all of us probably in America, the first item is lose weight. Save money, make more money, but one thing that we must all add is to ensure that we do our share, our bit on trying to promote a culture of peace and a culture of tolerance in whatever small way that we can. About a week ago, I was invited to a conference in Abu Dhabi. It is hosted by one of the most prominent Muslim scholars in the world today, Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayah. If you don't know his name, he was Minister of Justice of Mauritania. He's the Sheikh of Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, and he worked at the Islamic University in Riyadh for 30-40 years. He's considered a very prominent Muslim scholar. He's also lived in France for a few years, and therefore he's also one of the prominent scholars on the fiqh al-aqalliyat. the jurisprudence for minorities. So he's one of the most prominent Muslim scholars from the Muslim world to have written about the ethics of Muslim life in the West. And they brought in about 400 Islamic scholars from all over the world. And the idea was to try and create some mechanism by which we can promote peace and we can promote a culture of tolerance among Muslims and among Muslims and non-Muslims worldwide. So it was a good initiative. I was happy that so many Muslims are coming, but you must understand that while there is joy in meeting Muslim scholars from all over the world, people whom you have read but never met, people you're meeting after some time, but along with them comes news. So as I meet scholars from Mauritania, from Yemen and from Iraq, I'm getting to hear more details about how things are. Unfortunately, things may be worse than that we anticipate. But there were interesting ideas, and one idea that came out at this conference was very intriguing, and I want to share that with you, and I want you to think about it. The Sheikh bin Bayat called for a jurisprudence of peace. He called for creation of the jurisprudence of peace. Fiqh al-Aman. We need to think about jurisprudence of peace. In the past few years, I have become very cynical about talk of fiqh, Sharia, and jurisprudence. When I read the hadith literature, I don't find as much mention of the word Sharia itself. When I read the Quran, very few times. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when you talk to Muslims, it's all Sharia, Sharia, Sharia. So another Sharia-based initiative, another fiqh. For those of you who probably don't know, we have invented many fiqhs in the last few years. Fiqh al-aqalliyat is something that you must have heard, the jurisprudence of minorities. In the last 2 years, we've been talking about fiqh al-mawatin, jurisprudence of citizenship. The problem is that Muslim scholars seem to think that we can't sell anything to Muslims based on common sense. Like I can't tell you, don't touch this hot oven, you will burn your hand. I can tell this to the rest of the world, don't touch this, it is hot, it will burn your hand. But for Muslims that doesn't work. I'll have to create a jurisprudence of hot. So I'll have to go and search from the Quran verses and then hadith and ayah, then find a scholar from somewhere who's written a book, in Arabic preferably, that says if you touch hot things you will get burned. Then I have to dress up like this and start with a khutbah, and then maybe you will not burn your hand. Much of the product of all these fiqh of minorities, fiqh of citizenship, etc., is reaching the same conclusions that social sciences have reached 100 years ago. You can't have a proper country without treating all citizens equally. We're going in circles trying to find a hadith or an ayah to prove that. And so now we have this idea of fiqh jurisprudence. So I was cynical, but after that it became interesting to me. I'm also an academic, you see. I like to play with ideas. So what I did was I thought, okay, let me go back and look at it. And when I looked at the tradition, I found something very interesting. There is no chapter in the Quran or in Sahih Bukhari which is about war. There is no chapter on jihad, either in the Quran or in Sahih Bukhari, and there is no chapter on peace in any of the hadith books. All the hadith books I checked, there is no chapter on peace. Sahih Bukhari has one on Sulah. So if you're using English versions of the hadith, then you might get misguided because the word is translated as peacemaking. But it is actually reconciliation. So there is a kitab on reconciliation in the collection of Bukhari, but there is no book. There is books. Kitab al-Tahara is there. There are books on divorce in all these collections. But the great Muslim classical scholars did not feel the need to collect all the hadiths about peace and put them in one place. It's just a matter of annotation or collection. They did not feel the need to create a Kitab al-Aman in any of the literary books. And that's what this scholar is meaning by saying we need a fiqh of Aman, we need a jurisprudence. But if you look at Kitab al-Jihad, let me actually give you the references. The rest of the books of Hadith, for example, Sahih Muslim, chapter 32 is on jihad, and Nisai, chapter 25 is on war and jihad. If you look at Abu Dawood, chapter 15, Tirmidhi has 2 chapters on jihad. One is on jihad and one is on the virtues of jihad. 22 and 23, Ibn-e-Maryam 25, Muwatta, even Imam Malik's Muwatta, which has only 500 hadiths, it also has a chapter on jihad, chapter 21. None of the books have felt the need to create a book on peace. Now I understand that getting people to go to war is a big challenge. You know, getting people to come and donate at a fundraiser is such a big deal that we have to invite scholars from other states to come and motivate people to donate in the cause of God. One of the problems with Muslims in America is that the leaders are more enthusiastic than the followers. So we have more projects than people are willing to support. So we have to struggle. Maybe we should create a fiqh of donation. So people need to be motivated to. Now if we can't motivate people to go to little events at Masjid or fundraisers or civil rights or political events, how can you motivate people to go to war? I want you to go and fight and die for me so that I can save my property and my life. This is a problem in every country. So every culture, every society has glorified warriors. We have glorified war and warriors and martyrdom, etc. so that people can go out and fight. And now, that literature that we have consolidated, that literature that we have produced, that culture of glorifying warriors, etc. that we have produced is now coming to bite us. With organizations like ISIS and Al-Qaeda using the same literature to recruit young people, to radicalize young people, to go out there and fight. In the last few years, a lot of scholars, especially scholars in the West, have come up with this new device called Masjid al-Sharia. This is a new approach to establishing and articulating Islamic legal principles. It is a device by which we are trying to include human rights, etc. into the language of Sharia. And we are fortunate that some classical scholars like Imam al-Ghazali and Imam al-Shatibi have actually written extensively, including Imam Ibn-e-Maryam, about the purposes of the Sharia, the maqasid of the Sharia. So now, contemporary Muslim scholars are saying, let's forget the past approach that is great, now we need a new way of articulating Sharia by actually going to the original sources and asking the question, what is the purpose of the Sharia? If you ask classical scholars in the past, they always told you the purpose of Sharia is to establish justice. Period. But now this Maqasid al-Sharia approach is very interesting because the 5 goals of the Sharia that have been articulated by Imam Shatibi and Imam Ghazali and others, and apparently there was a consensus among medieval scholars on this, is to protect life, jaan, mal, property, nisbah, association, aql wa deen. So the 5 things that the Sharia is supposed to protect is life, property, association, your relationship, your identity. It is a kind of code word for tribalism. And aql, which is reason, and number 5 is deen. Now, all these blasphemy rules that we have in some countries is to protect religion. Contemporary Muslim scholars are trying to use that to say the purpose of the Sharia is not to protect religion, but to protect freedom of religion. So there is a lot of intellectual gymnastics going on, because for the simple reason, we can't tell Muslims to use their common sense and recognize that it is important to protect everybody's freedom of religion, otherwise Muslims' freedom of religion will not be protected. So we have to use this extremely complicated route. We go back and say that one of the maqasid of the Sharia is to protect deen, and one way you protect deen is by protecting But to me, the thing that stuck out was that these scholars did not feel the need to say that one of the objectives of the Sharia is to make peace. Is to make peace, to maintain peace, to advocate peace. Peace should be the default status. War should be an absence, an aberration, a destruction of peace. But our Lord didn't do that. The Quran is full of advocacy of peace. One of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's essential attributes is salam. Then how did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala command the believers to greet each other? By saying, Assalamu alaikum. May peace be upon us. It's not just us, even Jews say Shalom alaikum. All people who believe in God have been commanded to wish peace upon each other. We don't meet a brother and say, yeah brother, I wish you become shaheed tomorrow in jihad inshallah. No, we don't say that. Yeah, akhi, I wish you go to jihad now. I wish there's jihad on our community. I wish we fall in war. No, nobody ever wishes that on anybody. What we wish upon our communities is peace. Every time, every time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has used the word Darul Salam to indicate heaven. It's not Darul Jihad or Darul Harb. It is Darul Salam is the word that is used to define heaven. It is a house of peace, the abode of peace. So it's very important for us to recognize that yes, indeed there has been an overlooking of the importance and significance of peace in our discourse and the way we talk about politics. And therefore, even though I'm cynical about this jurisprudential approaches, I think that Muslims do need a jurisprudence of peace. Muslims do need a culture of peace, to talk more and more and more about peace and recognize that peace is important. In 1997, I was a young and handsome graduate student. I'm still handsome but not young. But that was in 1997, and I was at a conference at American University with this very prominent Indian Muslim scholar called Maulana Wahid-ud-Din Khan. He was 70 at that time and I was 29, I think, and we were debating. And I was so arrogant and stupid, I shouldn't have even debated him. I should have been at his feet learning from him, but I was debating him. The topic of the debate was justice and peace. And I was arguing that we cannot have peace without justice. We cannot have peace without justice. If you want peace, work for justice. And he was saying you cannot have justice without peace. If you want justice, make peace first. And of course, guess who won the debate? If you went by the applause, I won. Everybody in the audience said, yes, 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 we want justice. If there is no justice, we will go to jihad. We will go to war. We want justice. There is no justice in this world, Ya Rabbi. Justice will be on the day of Akhirah. It took me 20 years to figure out how wrong I was. Now when I look at the situation in Syria and Iraq, there is going to be no justice there. So much injustice has been done by everybody to everybody. You'll have to kill everybody to bring justice. So if we demand that we justice, otherwise there will be war, we will be eternally at war. So if Maulana Wahid-ud-Din Khan gets to see this video, I was wrong, he was right. We need to make peace first. And when we have peace, then we can work towards justice. We can create institutions which will bring justice to us. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said something interesting. He said, I'm going to recite one or two hadiths to you. There are many to tell you how we could have had a chapter on peace in every collection of hadiths. We don't. Even contemporary books of hadith do not. Prophet ﷺ in one hadith says, Amruna Nabiyina sallallahu alayhi wa sallam an nafshi as-salam. Our Prophet commanded us to spread peace. In another beautiful hadith, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Abadu ar-Rahman wa afshu as-salam. Worship Rahman and work to spreading peace. You've not heard this hadith before. And this hadith is Sahih. The previous one was Hasan. This is a Sahih hadith. It is in Ibn-e-Maryam. 3693 is the number. This is a Sahih hadith, but we never ever hear it. And it's a beautiful hadith, very brief. Worship Rahman. It's not saying worship Allah. It's saying worship Rahman. He's invoking that attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is compassion and mercy and forgiveness. So worship forgiveness, worship compassion, worship benevolence, and work towards peace and spread peace. And another hadith, Prophet ﷺ says, this is also from Ibn-e-Maryam, O people, spread peace. Feed the hungry, pray at night when people are sleeping, and you will enter paradise. O people, spread peace, feed the hungry, and pray at night. When people are sleeping, you will enter paradise. Well, these are some of the most key, important hadiths. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَإِبَادُ الرَّحْمَنِ الَّذِي يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ حَوْنًا وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمْ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. Oh, you have heard all of this. If you encounter somebody who's ignorant, argumentative, intellectually challenged, you're supposed to say peace and walk away. That is the common understanding of this ayah. But if you look at it much more profoundly, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying is that even when you are being assaulted, when you are being aggressed upon by the ignorant and the hateful, your job is to speak peace, to spread peace. It is very important for us to realize that that is the purpose, if not one of the most purpose. Without peace, you do not have the opportunity to go to the Masjid and pray 5 times. Without peace, you do not have the opportunity to spread the knowledge of the Deen. Civilizations are built on peace, not on war. War destroys civilizations. Peace allows you the opportunity to build. And these are some of the traditions in the Quran and the Hadith that we need to emphasize more and more with our children, with our colleagues, in our interfaith dialogues. قولي قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Inna Allaha wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. In another hadith, this is from Sahih Bukhari, and look, all hadiths in Sahih Muslim, Sahih Bukhari are not necessarily Sahih. Some of them are mawdu, which is fabricated, some of them are also weak, daif, some of them are hasan, and some of them are sahih. This one is sahih. From now on, I will try in future, every time I cite a hadith, to tell you whether it is sahih or whether it is hasan. This is also a sahih hadith in which the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says, this is very beautiful, please pay attention. Whoever has 3 qualities together will have gathered his iman. And the Arabic is فَقَدْ جَمَعَ الْإِمَانِ. This is a bad translation. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, that whoever has all these 3 categories, he has consolidated his iman. Jama'a al-iman. That is the better way to understand this. So he has consolidated his iman, and those 3 qualities are insaf, equity, injustice with yourself, offering peace to the world, celebrating peace and promoting peace in the world. Wassalam lil alam. That's how it said. And spending from small amounts. Now it's a very interesting hadith. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that if you have 3 qualities, number 1, that if you are a person who believes in insaf, and if you are a person who believes in spreading peace, and if you are poor, and if you have very little money, but even from that you donate, even from that you spend, then you have truly consolidated your iman. The next few minutes I'm going to preach, but I'm a strong believer in practicing what I preach. So here's my check, already written, and so I'm going to preach. This masjid needs a new roof. The estimated cost of the roof is $85,000. We are $41,000 short. And one snowfall could devastate the building and property, then the cost of repairs will far, far exceed what is required now to replace the roof. It is very important that we do this. The next 4 years are going to be very difficult and very challenging to Muslims. Hate, intolerance, racism are going to peak. Many of the things which were taboo have become mainstream today. And unfortunately, Muslims, as the weakest minority in this country, will become the scapegoat of all bad things in this country. We will be scapegoated, we will be targeted. Everybody who wants to make a point will target us to make a point. May Allah protect us from that. And think of masajids and Muslim institutions as Baitul Salam, as houses of peace. Houses where you can come and find security, you can find contentment, you can find connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If there are habited houses of Allah in any neighborhood, in any community, and by habited houses I mean not fancy buildings which are constructed and become tourist spots, but buildings where there is genuine ibadah and zikr and mention and fikr taking place, they will become havens and sanctuaries of protection and safety. So it is very important for Muslims across the country, not just in Delaware, to strengthen their Islamic institutions, to strengthen their masajid. So I request you all, inshallah, to make as much as possible easy for us to be able to raise the required $41,000 to $45,000 extra that we need to fix this roof before we have. Alhamdulillah, we haven't had a major snowstorm in the last couple of years. I hope we don't get it this year, but we cannot bank on that. So it's very important that you all come forward and make sure that you give your donations to the masjid. It's very important. It is also good for the spiritual and mental health of the organizers. The anxiety itself is killing. And so it's very important that please you come forward and give whatever it is. There is barakah. It doesn't matter if it's a small amount or a big amount, but please come forward and do this. I always talk about this wonderful experience that I had the first time I went to Turkey. And I went to a masjid. Like every time I go to a Muslim country, I leave my suitcase in the hotel and try to go to the nearest mosque. And this was a mosque in the Asian side of Istanbul. And I went to that, and the first thing that I noticed was that after the salah, nobody runs away. That was the beautiful thing, I thought. I'm used to people running away from the masjid as if the temperature of the mosque has suddenly gone up after salah. Nobody moved. And I was like sitting in the 10th or 12th row, and people are just sitting very quietly, and suddenly there's a tilawat of Quran, people recited the Quran, and they did tasbih, etc., and people went. I got very fascinated by this slight difference that I noticed there. But one thing that I noticed a lot about salah when you pray is that after the salah, you notice that the Turks always shout this particular hadith, Allahumma anta salam wa minka salam tabarak ya zal jalali wal ikram. And this is quite appropriate. I wanted to share this hadith with you before I end this khutbah. It says, O Allah, indeed you are the very essence of peace, and you are the only source of peace. You are the very essence of peace, and you are the only source of peace. Blessed are you who possesses majesty and nobility. Inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsan wa ita'i dhil qurba wa yanha 'anil fahsha'i wal munkari wal baghi ya'izukum la'allakum tadhakkarun wa aqimus salah.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. ومن الناس من يشري نفسه ابتغاء مرضات الله والله رؤوف بالعباد. يا أيها الذين آمنوا ادخلوا في السلم كافة ولا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين. فإن زللتم من بعد ما جاءتكم البينات فاعلموا أن الله عزيز حكيم. هل ينظرون إلا أن يأتيهم الله في ظلل من الغمام والملائكة وقضي الأمر وإلى الله ترجع الأمور. سل بني إسرائيل كم آتيناهم من آية بينة ومن يبدل نعمة الله من بعد ما جاءته فإن الله شديد العقاب. زين للذين كفروا الحياة الدنيا ويسخرون من الذين آمنوا والذين اتقوا فوقهم يوم القيامة والله يرزق من يشاء بغير حساب. الله الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. كان الناس أمة واحدة فبعث الله النبيين مبشرين ومنذرين وأنزل معهم الكتاب بالحق ليحكم بين الناس فيما اختلفوا فيه وما اختلف فيه إلا الذين أوتوه من بعد ما جاءتهم البينات بغيا بينهم فهدى الله الذين آمنوا لما اختلفوا فيه من الحق بإذنه والله يهدي من يشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. أم حسبتم أن تدخلوا الجنة ولما يأتكم مثل الذين خلوا من قبلكم مستهم البأساء والضراء وزلزلوا حتى يقول الرسول والذين آمنوا معه متى نصر الله ألا إن نصر الله قريب. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله 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 أكبر. الله الله الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.